career spans from paramedic to owning a homebrew store to starting a brewery.
Yep.
Now, I said that very quickly. It didn't take that quick, though, did it?
No. It takes a few brain farts to actually get that far into it.
Yep.
So I left the ambulance service way back when, and we were looking at business opportunities in the Bay.
Yep.
We decided that we were going to settle here and finish raising the last of the family to leave home, and basically the opportunity came up for the home brew shop, which we'd actually looked at previously a few years before that, and here we are.
Had you been a brewer previous to that?
I'd done some brewing, on and off over a period of about 10 years when I was up north and that sort of thing, but never very successfully and never very well.
And you became quite the home brewer because I've seen your setup before all this shiny stuff behind us.
Yep.
And you really got into it from just doing
absolutely.
it at home,
Oh, it's a hobby you got to love.
Yep.
You know.
Yep. You got to be into it to be able to,
Yeah, I think you've got to have some appreciation for good beer and...
the science as well.
Yeah, it's a little bit of science involved in it. So there's a bit of physics and a bit of chemistry if you want it to be there. Some microbiology if you want to. That sort of thing. And coming out of a background from applied sciences, none of it was particularly difficult to learn.
Yep.
But, you can make it as simple or as difficult as you like.
So what inspired this?
Need.
Yep.
The town needed a brewery.
Yep.
And it's time that Hervey Bay sort of started to step it up a little bit as far as the facilities that are available for people and to keep particularly younger professionals enthused in the town and that sort of thing, that they want decent places to go out to, have a great feed and have some great beers and some chilled out time. And you don't have the hustle and bustle of the pubs.
Yeah, and if people are basically on the craft beer train, they want to, sort of do the route. Basically, Karoi is your last stop before here, isn't it? For craft brewery, like there's nothing really in Gympie, is there?
There is now one in Gympie.
Is there?
And another one being set up down in Nambour as well. That's actually happening at the moment. And then after here, there's Bagara. And then as you go further north, you've got what's the next one? Next one after that is now Gladstone.
Got one in Gladstone now, have they?
One in Gladstone as
there
well,
you go.
now at the port, and then up to Rocky and Yeppoon.
So this is a well-placed area, really, when you think about it, because there was sort of nothing in between, because Bundy's an hour and a half from here, you've got Gympie's an hour and a half from here, so it's a good little stop there.
Absolutely.
People are doing the trail.
It's a favourite holiday destination for a lot of families, from particularly around Queensland and out of the southeast corner and that sort of thing, and it's within striking distance for a weekend trip or a long weekend trip, or for longer stays, as we see and that sort of thing during the whale season. There's oftentimes people pulling up stumps from home and setting up a temporary home in Hervey Bay, either at a caravan park or at accommodation houses and that sort of thing. And some of those people are here for quite lengthy periods of time.
Yep. At the moment, it's just you and James running the show when it comes to doing all the brewing?
Yep.
And you guys put all this stuff together from scratch pretty much, didn't you?
We did, without any English instructions, which is pretty amazing. But yeah, we had actually contracted an engineer to come out with the gear from China and to be here for a couple of weeks for the assembly and test running and that sort of thing, and for a settling in period. And because of COVID, that didn't happen. But
you got there.
Adapt and overcome. We got there. A lot of grunting and groaning and a few accidentally dropped tools quite hard.
I could imagine.
And things like that. A couple of tantrums in amongst it.
Yep.
And we got there eventually, and it looks fantastic and it works great. So
well, that's good.
that's
Working great, that's what you want.
Yep.
You couldn't ask for anything better than that.
We had great tradies working with us as well on the electrical side, and with the plumbers that we had and that sort of thing to get this done particularly.
Yep.
And with the concreters, they've done a fantastic job on the pad to get it exactly how it needed to be.
Because that's
sort of
really
thing,
important, isn't the groundwork, having that cement?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The right foundations to build the right gear onto.
Yep.
Yep.
And where to from here? I see some more taps being installed.
Yeah, so we're expanding the range of beers available. People will notice as they come through progressively over the next couple of weeks that there'll be more and more taps on the wall. And we're going to expand it by another 15 taps.
Wow.
And that will give us the ability to keep some ciders, sour beers, sparkling and still water on tap, as well as the extra beer styles and that sort of thing. So
There'd be nowhere in Hervey Bay that would have that sort of range, would there?
not the range of beers. There's certainly pubs in town that have got more taps than
Yep.
what we'll have, but they won't have the amount of unique beers and offerings on tap.
Yeah, it's quite impressive.
So,
yeah, absolutely. And Martin, 2020, funny year. It's been the theme of what I've been talking about lately. Swings and roundabouts.
It wasn't funny. It stopped being funny in about March.
But this is the year that your dream came true, right?
Yeah, through all the adversity of what COVID brought the world and that sort of thing.
It allowed you to get this up.
Opportunity to push through in some challenging times and
Sure.
get things done. It's been quite a journey.
So it was 3 or 4 years from conception to here.
About 3.5 years to get the doors
3.5
open.
years.
Yeah.
And I was around during that time buying stuff from your home brew store and just seeing all the things that you had to go through with council approval, and then there was a million things. You probably don't even want to talk about it anymore. But all those things that sort of went wrong started coming right for you in 2020. It's just interesting how you can look at things with perspective, isn't it?
Yeah, thank God it's over.
Yeah.
Look, I've got to say, when you look at all the compliance issues with building a brewery and that
Yep.
sort of thing, I guess in some regional areas and within metropolitan areas and that sort of thing, people will get by without even sort of being looked at
Yeah.
and that sort of thing. So they'll be able to build a brewery and barely have a glitch.
Yep.
The process is well known by everybody who's dealing with approvals processes and that sort of thing. Wasn't the case here. We were the first, and we broke the ice. I have to say that the local council were incredibly supportive of it
Yep.
and that sort of thing, but we also had a great team of professionals behind us with town planner. Angelo Oliaro was our town planner. He was just magnificent to deal with, made the process so simple for a development application. We had Hervey Bay Design Group behind us for our architects who gave us a guiding hand
Yep.
throughout the process. They were just magnificent to deal with and do great work. In fact, if it hadn't have been for them in the earlier stage, I probably would have just walked away from
Okay.
it. It was just looking too hard.
Yep.
Starting to look very, very expensive as well. I mean, as it was, we were over $1 million to get the doors open.
Yep.
From our initial budgeting of 300 and whatever
Right.
it was, 100,000.
Okay.
And then we revised up to about the 450 mark, and then by the time we finished with the bank, who were also fantastic to deal with, and it wouldn't have happened without our bank and our bank manager. We threw a lot more in than we borrowed, and
Yep.
and that sort of thing, and it was just over $1 million to get the doors open.
So what would your advice be to people who are thinking about doing what you did?
Don't do it. I think if you're doing it because it's a hobby that you love to do,
Yep.
stick with your hobby
Yeah.
and enjoy it for what it is.
Mm.
I think if you're doing it as a business investment that you've thought through very carefully and done a lot of research on,
Yep.
and you've got the passion and the drive to do it, then yes, definitely do it. If you've got the support of your partner,
Yeah.
and you are going to need a very, very supportive partner for
That's a
this
big one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Say some prayers.
Give it a go. But it's not something you can just, you can't just dip your foot into the water and
Yeah.
and test it. It
I
just
remember
doesn't work that
you
way.
saying to me it must have been 12 months into the whole thing. And you went, geez, it's pretty hard. And I went, yeah, like maybe you could. And you went, I can't. You can't stop. You said, I cannot stop. Once you get to a certain level and you've paid for certain things, you can't go back, can you?
Well, you can if you're willing to just
Take a loss.
take those big losses and that sort of thing. But by the time you get to that stage, you're probably going to be about $200,000 into it.
Yep.
And if you don't go through with it, then you're probably going to lose all of that money and have nothing to show for it but some pieces of paper and
That's it.
And some broken dreams, basically. I think one of the biggest struggles for new for new operations when they're in the concept stage is that understand that whatever you think it's going to cost you, it's going to cost you a lot more than you ever realised, and that sort of thing. And you know, if you're gonna build a brewery, you've got to do it right. And that means that you've got to have the right building with the right location, and maybe traffic flow is a consideration depending on your business model. You've got to have sufficient parking, which is always a major consideration in commercial areas. You've got to have some public transport available to you as well. For people who don't want to be driving
have a drink
to a venue and have a couple of drinks and that sort of thing. And these days, people are a lot more responsible with that approach and that sort of thing. Thankfully, locally, we've got Dial a Driver,
which is great.
Businesses that will come and pick you up and your car, take you home safely, and it's cheap. And thankfully, also now we've got Uber in town as well, which we didn't have a long way behind the cities.
Makes it all a lot safer.
It does, and you've got to be responsible when you're going out to have a couple of drinks and a feed and that sort of thing.
Absolutely,
it's not worth the risk for other people's lives.
No,
basically.
That's right. Yeah, so you've got to have that stuff in play.
You've got to have all those things in place. You've got to have an understanding of how you're actually going to finance it right from the word go. You won't tie that in for probably 6 to 12 months into the process to exactly how it's going to end up looking and that sort of thing. But you've got to find the right building that's got things like access for drainage and for effluent management programs and that sort of thing. So we spent a considerable amount of money on drainage and foundations for the brewery itself, and then the ability to actually treat our effluent before it goes out to the sewer. We're a business. We have to be responsible for our own effluent and treating that before it goes out, so that the system can actually handle it. And I get that. So you just roll it all up in the price at the end of the day and do what you need to do. You're going to need lots and lots and lots of electricity supply into the building.
That's a big one.
That was a bit of a shock for us to find out how much that can actually cost in infrastructure, and that came very late in the piece because there were some miscalculations on some of the vessels, that how much electricity they're actually going to chew, like a hot liquor tank, 1,400 litre hot liquor tank, and there's much bigger ones than that around that use a lot more power. And that was sort of a downside to not going with a steam-based system or gas-fired for the HLT and that sort of thing. So we had, I think, all up about a $40,000 shock with that one, and you got to scamper around and find the money to do that sort of stuff so you can get the rest of it operational. We struggled with trades quotes, getting guys to actually take it seriously and come up with some figures that were realistic and that sort of thing. Some of the guys that were coming through here were, I think, I'm not saying dreaming, but unrealistic in their expectations of what you can be paid. And I think, as soon as you say brewery, they're sort of... guy's a millionaire, he's going to do it. And that's the thing. I actually had one guy that stood in front of me one day and said, well, that's the price, mate. If you want a brewery, you're going to have to pay it. And it was actually about 5 times the price that we ended up paying for. It was a slab. And what we ended up with was magnificent work.
Wow.
We don't have any issues or anything like that, but you spend the money to do the design work and get it right in the first place. You've got a good foundation to work from. So
the tip for a brewery is exactly the same as a tip for a wedding. Don't say it's a wedding and don't say it's a brewery. You won't get the double charge.
Just about. But look, in the end, the guys that we ended up with doing the trades work, we were incredibly happy with the stuff that they've done and that sort of thing. So
they've done a fantastic job.
A lot of businesses made some good coin out of the setup and that sort of thing.
But it all stayed locally. So
we kept everything local that we possibly could. We did have to bring in a concrete coater to do the specific material that we used on the pad, which is the blue coating on the floor, purely because of our time frame and that sort of thing. That was about it. Everything else was done local.
That's great. And Martin, for people wanting to know, what are your hours and when are you doing meals?
Yep. So we've been trading on Thursdays through to Mondays, and closed up Tuesday, Wednesday for us to do brew days and maintenance days and that sort of thing in the actual brewery itself. And we're going to change that over the next 2 weeks, starting effective from the 15th of this month. We're going to be closing on Mondays. It just hasn't been working for us, and the demand's not there. As you can see, we've only got about 4 or 5 guys here at the moment. and that sort of thing, and it doesn't pay for itself. So
Sure.
we're going to close up on Mondays and Tuesdays and
Yep.
open up on Wednesday through to Sunday.
Okay.
So we're licensed from 11 a.m. until 11 p.m. But basically we're here until late. So if there's people around, we're here.
Yep.
If there's not people around, well, we're going to close up and let staff go home.
Excellent. We'll try some of Cauldron Brewing's beautiful stuff. It's all locally made, and I can vouch for it. Martin's a great brewer, and so is James. So, come and try some really nice beers. Cheers for talking, mate.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Appreciate it.